I was just explaining how we opened our doors to the public in 1905. And if you want to know a little bit more of the history of the library, the city of Watertown wanted to open a public library in the very late 1800s, like 1898. And this woman, Emma Flower Taylor, who built this library, was like, well, hey, I'll donate the money. And they were like, no, we're going to see if Andrew Carnegie will do it, or basically anyone but you, lady. And then by the time 1901 rolled around, nobody had jumped on trying to build a public library except for her. So of course, the city came back and was like, okay, we'd like your offer to build the library now. And she was like, that's fine, but I'm going to build it exactly how I want it built. And so everything in this historic part of the library, as far as art and architecture, is because she wanted it that way. And so she was a huge part of the spiritualist movement, big into seances and astrology and things like that. And that's why you'll notice on the floor, there's all the bronze zodiacs inlaid in the marble, which is pretty cool. And that was kind of her tribute to her own personality and what astrology meant to her. And then you look up into our main rotunda, the dome, and there are actually subjects of the library that you would find in a library, like history, poetry, science, and drama. Underneath those are some of the famous authors that ever wrote. So poetry has Homer and Dante, science has Darwin and Newton, so on and so forth. The people that are actually in the dome are separate pieces of canvas that were hand sewn into the dome. This library underwent a major restoration project in 2004, and it lasted for a few years to bring the library back to its original grandeur, basically, because, in the 1930s, when the library started to look a little worn, what do? You slap paint on the walls because you don't know it's a historic building until it becomes a historic building. So they brought in art restorers and different art cleaners, and they were actually able to use their X-ray technology to see what was under all the layers of paint. And so all of the detail work that you see, they restored back to the way it looked in 1905 when the building opened. So this room over here, this is the North Reading Room, and this is actually right here in this entrance is where we have a photograph of an apparition. And all of the curtains were closed, all of the lights were off. There was no light shining through at all. There's an apparition right here, and you can actually see the face. And I could email that to you if you ever wanted to see it. We do have patrons that will come in, and some people are more of more of a medium than we are. They have that ability. Many patrons have said, I've been in this room, and there's a woman in here. A woman in white. She's harmless, but she's in there, like I can feel her presence. So we don't know who that is, but. When she was building the library, she had a very basically recent tragedy. Her son Roswell died when he was very, very young, and so when Ella Condi did this mural, Emma said, I'd really love it if you could put a little portrait of Roswell somewhere in there. And so he's the little fella sitting on the lady's lap, which is kind of sweet. So there's like little pieces of her everywhere in the building.
So is there any reports of activity on the second floor too?
Yeah, okay. We can go up there next.
Sure.
Yeah.
So on Monday nights, I usually close, and I take the same route up there every time. There's usually nobody up there, and I'll shut off lights. And then I'll hear footsteps behind me whenever we head over towards the north end. And I usually kind of freak out thinking, oh my God, I shut off the lights on somebody. And I look and there's nobody there. And I've just kind of gotten used to hearing a few footsteps every once in a while on that side.
Sometimes you think you might see something out of the corner of your eye too, and you look and there's no one there.
Yeah.
So when
You
was the
almost
last
feel
time the team was in here to investigate?
8 years, I think. It's been 8 years. It's
Okay.
been quite a bit. Getting our historic windows updated, so that's why some of this looks a little bit in disarray. Normally these would be set up historic rooms for the museum part of the library. This is an area we call the Napoleon Room, because Joseph Bonaparte actually came to this area. I'm sure you've heard of Lake Bonaparte before. He came here to make a safe house for Napoleon so he could flee France and come here and live. He never actually came.
Like to Watertown specifically, or to just the North Country?
To the North Country area.
Gotcha.
And then Emma Flower Taylor had a maid and a gardener who were somehow involved with the Bonapartes, and so they had artifacts, and we ended up getting Napoleon artifacts from the actual Bonaparte family. This is what we call the mezzanine. And again, I see before, all this stuff is under your visitors paint. We were able to bring all this stuff to look at now. It's pretty fun. This is the area where I hear footsteps. And it's a pretty squeaky floor, so like,
But I'll be
and there's no place to hide. So when you're hearing footsteps, if you come out here, you're like,
Yeah.
hello?
I'm like over here in the new part and I hear steps and I have to like come out here and look around.
So when you're walking through towards this way, you hear footsteps from
Yeah.
this area where we're standing?
Yeah, so usually I make a loop from that end around this way and shut off lights that way. And I'll be done with this area. I'll either be walking by to head downstairs, or I'll be finishing off this area and I'll hear steps kind of in this area. And they're definite steps too. Like it's not just one floorboard cracking. This would be the old Watertown room.
Yeah.
Which
Never
was
had
also
any.
original. Yeah.
Get in there.
No. I'm gonna be so vindicated of you guys have footsteps too. Footsteps, yes. Listen, it's past my bedtime. I should be tucked in my cardigan right now.
Yeah, it's about 40 minutes to mine.
Of course.
So this is part of the 1976 edition. However, this actually used to be a garden pergola originally. They tore it down in the 30s because they couldn't keep up with the maintenance of it. But you used to be able to come out here. There was actual flower beds and gardens and fountains. You could come out here and sit. But now it's our reference local history area. That's the teen space where the things that happen in there most likely are the lights will come on for no reason, and sometimes the window shades go up for no reason, which could be faulty wiring or faulty shades, but we see that sometimes. Back here is the genealogy department. When we had an investigation a while ago, they actually made contact with something through a spirit box. I wasn't part of that. I was in a different part of the library at the time, so I didn't personally experience it. And the big artifacts that we have in here are actually these two. These are the Woodruffs, and they were donated to the library with a huge endowment fund for us to always take care of those portraits and make sure that they stay in good condition. But everything gets donated here. Family histories, family Bibles, handwritten letters. So there's a lot, even though it's the newer part of the building,
Okay.
it's got a lot of history stuff in here.
So the north reading room, this room,
Yep.
and then the hallway is where she said footsteps, and then the
Yeah.
basement.
And then the basement.
Okay.
I got some stories for you down there.
Awesome. Now, is this like an original bust of some prominent
That's
figure?
actually President Grant.
Okay.
And we have no idea where it came from. Some of the stuff we don't know how it got here or where it came from. You would.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that staff room have an extra light switch?
Which staff room?
This one right here.
The one that the light just came on in?
Yeah,
Oh,
we all
the
just.
closet there?
This, yeah.
No, it's motion, I think. Let's see.
I'm sure
I
there's
don't
I wasn't the
usually
only
go
one
in
that
here.
saw that.
Terry, our genealogist, is usually the one who goes in here. I could probably.
Is Terry in
give
there
him
right
a
now?
knock.
So the light literally just
Yeah,
came
that
on?
just came on.
Yeah. Just
The
turned.
light's just like, hey, what's up, guys?
I don't know if this is a sensor over here for it. I don't know.
I mean, if it is,
Even if it's
how
motion,
would it
nobody's
have
in
gone
there.
off
Yeah,
or
that's a
got
good
turned
point.
on?
That's fair.
They're like, it's been 8 years since investigators came. Let's stop.
Acknowledge me.
Hide, everybody in the closet.
Alright, well, I'll leave this cracked for you guys then.
Yeah, because that was really
Is that
weird.
motion activated in there?
The closet?
I think so, unless
I
they
didn't
switch the room
see
out.
the switch.
Well, is there another?
must be.
Is there another switch that turns it on?
That light just came on.
It must be part of the new motion active. They replaced so many of them, I don't know what's a switch.
I don't know,
Some
but it
of the
was
rooms.
locked, and the 4 of us saw it turn on.
Yeah, it must be motion.
From where?
From a ghost.
In there.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
All right, well, mark that closet.
And then I'll show you where we smell the cigar smoke a lot of times. So this is the 1812 room. This actually at one point was the genealogy department, and at one point was the museum. Now it's just a community meeting area, but we do have the original bronze bust of Roswell there, and then all of these historical portraits from the War of 1812.
Awesome.
And a lot of times when you close up at night, you might come around this corner and all you can smell is cigar smoke, but nobody's in here smoking.
This is Napoleon's travel kit.
So that's the mirror that Napoleon stares into. That is absolutely nuts. So there's the razor that he used, so there's literally Napoleon DNA in this room.
Yeah, there has to be.
That's absolutely nuts.
So this part of the basement was dug out in 1976, but we have a ton of different construction workers and contractors, electricians that have been down here. They hate being down here by themselves. We've had some that have said that they've heard children laughing up and down like they come in 6 a.m., 7 a.m., long before the library's open. They go and investigate it. Nobody's there. They see things out of the corner of their eye. We have a maintenance man who's always terrified to be down here. I think my coworker that sits down here right now said that she had a cross stitch that was regularly being moved and played with on her desk, even though security said no one was touching it. And my thought was, well, if it's an older spirit, maybe cross stitch was like their hobby.
Yeah.
She asked me if I was messing with it on her at one point too, so.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so I was actually sitting in this chair, this yellow chair, probably the same freaking chair I've been sitting here the entire time, about 10 years ago, and the investigative team that was here was doing the flashlight test or whatever, and that's when my phone drained completely, where it had to go down into restart mode, was when and the flashlights were going off and on, and I know that can be,
Yeah. So,
iffy at best.
Cue the creepy dolls.
Brad found.
So this is Emma Flower Taylor's antique doll collection. She collected dolls her whole life. Anytime she traveled, anytime her dad traveled, he'd bring her a new doll. Some of these dolls have real human hair, which was very common in the old days.
That explains the children ghost.
Yeah.
One time I was down here and one of the dolls fell over, and dolls are my creep. I don't like old dolls. Not my deal. And it fell over, and I texted my coworker. I was like, "You got to come down here because I'm frozen in place. Today might be the day I am deceased."
So you said she got these when she traveled, or like her dad would bring them to her when he traveled?
Yep. So they're from all over the world. The
So,
Japanese dolls have real human hair.
Yeah, let's say China, Japan.
Yep. And this is where people would come and get their books. And they had the bathrooms down here. We actually have some of the original book stacks. So they're the last original book stacks actually in the library from 1905. And that's this. These are really cool. So I was actually down here by myself one night putting books on the shelves, and I hear a blood-curdling scream. And many people have heard the blood-curdling scream.